So I was reading at NFL.com a story of every team's most underappreciated player. And I'm like, all right, let me see. Well, let me see what they got for the Bills here. If you were to guess, Sal, assuming you haven't seen this.
I have not seen this.
If you were to guess, who would you guess that NFL.com has listed for the Bills as their most underappreciated player?
Okay, underappreciated. All right, so I'm going to play the game here, what's the saying? Play the player, not the game. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Like, what does NFL.com say? Because I think if you are in Buffalo, if we do this, if we put the poll up, right, from Bills fans, I think you're getting Terrell Bernard, Khalil Shakir, one of those guys, maybe Christian Benford.
Yeah,
I think those are probably your top 3 guys off the top of my head. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
right?
No, definitely. I would tell you that. In fact, I'll even tell you who my answer would be that I would put in that group would be Spencer Brown.
Yes. Because
I
was just going to say him too.
I think last year he might have taken. Not even might have. I think there's a lot of good evidence of this, that he took a step as one of the league's best right tackles now. And that especially that playoff game against Denver, I think he was literally perfect. Like, he didn't have a single failed protection the whole game. I would say Spencer Brown would be my answer.
His game has really grown, and he's such a big guy. He's so athletic for his size. So
yeah,
I'm going to guess that they did not choose one of those 4 then.
None of them. They didn't choose any of them.
Okay. So who would they say most underappreciated? Don't tell me it's Ed Oliver.
It's not Ed Oliver.
Okay.
I would say, do you want me to give you a couple of the other teams to kind of give you an idea of
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Level?
Let's go.
So, Baltimore, they put Rashad Bateman. Cincinnati is tight end Mike Gesicki. You go down to Kansas City is tight end Noah Gray. So sometimes you get a full-time starter. Okay. Sometimes you're getting more of a, like Pittsburgh, it's Jaylen Warren, who's the part-time running back.
Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna stop you right there.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say Ty Johnson.
That's a very good guess. It's not Ty Johnson.
Okay.
I feel like Ty Johnson would have been a great answer too, though, to this question. It is someone that would not be a listed starter going into the season.
Okay, not a listed starter.
Yeah.
Dorian Williams.
It is Dorian Williams. They put Dorian Williams as the Bills' most underappreciated player. They did cite one of the reasons is that he had the most tackles on the team last year, that he played well until Matt Milano came back. Dorian Williams, who had a fine season, I think, right? He didn't really let anybody down, I would say, when he was filling in for Matt Milano. He's not a star player right now.
There was a good debate when he came back, right? When Milano came back, even after Milano had, played a little bit, and people said, "Oh my God, he's not the same guy." Put Dorian Williams back in there, and the team kind of had a plan. I think it worked out in the end, where you could see why once you got to those playoff, once you got to the Ravens game, and then Milano kind of tweaked his hammy at the end of that Ravens game, by the way.
Yeah,
and and that's why he wasn't on the field for the last series. Eric Turner, Cover One, did a really good breakdown about Dorian last year versus Matt. When it all happened, it was December.
Yeah.
When Dorian Williams, when Matt Milano came back. And I remember Eric did this, and I would point to people, if you haven't watched it, you can go find it. We've had Eric, obviously, on WGR. And I thought that the thing that really stood out from what Eric broke down was Matt just processes so quickly that even though Dorian can kind of make plays and flash, and, he gets there, he gets to the party when he brings it, right? Sometimes he does not. When you're comparing to Matt Milano, you just don't process as fast. Yeah. Most people don't. So therefore, he just wasn't in the proper position quite often. Whereas Matt is almost always in the right position because he processes so fast.
Right, exactly.
Right. I think, wouldn't that be the best way to kind of put it?
I think so.
With the breakdown of what he did.
Yes, I would say that was the best takeaway between the two, and that because really, if you could take, Milano used to have this level of athleticism. Maybe he can get it back to some degree, and he did a little bit as the season went on. If you could take Milano's processing speed mentally and put it right now in Dorian Williams' athleticism, you'd have the best linebacker in football. Because Williams is running, side to side across the field at the speed of some as a slower wide receiver more than even a fast tight end. That is the one position, Sal, that I would say on defense, right? Am I missing somebody that they really just didn't do anything? That they felt they restructured Milano's contract, and he's got 1 year now until he could hit free agency. But
no, I'll give you one.
Go ahead.
I mean, and they did sign just a kind of a depth piece. All that talk that we had going into the draft about safety, they didn't do anything.
Right. Oh, that's right. They didn't do anything. They signed Derek Forrest, but that's not like
he's a depth
major
piece. He's
signing.
not coming in to start.
That's right.
There was so much talk on draft day. I remember coming on draft day, and all these national people had the Bills taking, was it Malachi Starks?
Malachi Starks, yeah.
And all that. And I remember we had this big discussion, and I said many times, I just can't see it. I don't know why everybody's jumping on this. I'd be stunned. Look, I had so many people telling me and messaging me that day, like, well, Sal, you're nuts. That Malachi Starks is better than anybody they have. That's a different discussion.
Yeah.
Like, whether he's better than them or not, or the Bills should try to upgrade there or not, is a different discussion on how they view their own room and what they felt that what they were going to do. I never thought they were going to take a safety. They didn't. Of course, Malachi Starks went before the Bills drafted anyway. I mean, he went to the Baltimore Ravens, right? A couple of picks before the Bills. But they didn't do anything at that position, Joe, which is interesting, right? Because it was a position going in where there was a lot of talk into the season. They did bring DeMar Hamlin back on a very minimal contract. But I think it's clearly set up. Not to divert from your linebacker conversation.
No, yeah.
I think it's clearly set up. The Bills feel Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop are their top two safeties.
Yeah.
And maybe Cam Lewis is now just strictly their number 3 backup. Or maybe that comes from the corner they drafted, Jordan Hancock, because him and Cam Lewis are kind of like the same interchangeable safety/slot corner.
That's right. See, to me, though, that's a good question about like who would be the next man up and how rotationally it could go. But I'm with you. Like I don't think there's any chance, realistically, where other than injury, or Cole Bishop just shows up and just like something didn't click in the offseason. Like it's going to be Rapp and Bishop. Linebacker, it's going to be Bernard and Milano. But I am 100%. I am curious how it goes and how the season progresses. Because Milano, I think, did give confidence to people that, okay, there's still, you mentioned the processing speed, Eric Turner's breakdown, like it came back. From the first time he steps on the field and he gets crossed over by Kyron Williams in that Ram game. And it's, oh, man, I just wonder if there's anything left in there. To that Jet game and that first playoff game and even parts of the Baltimore game where it's like, okay, there's still a dude in there. It might not be.
Ravens. You remember there were a couple plays in the Ravens game. He knocked down that 2-point conversion where it kind of looked like it was just, okay, they're going to complete this. And out of nowhere, he gets that left hand back and he knocks it down, I think it was, right? Like, those are the kinds of things that started to come back.
Yeah, I'm forgetting if it was that game or if it was even the Denver game a little bit, but using Milano as the spy a lot of times.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He had a sack on Bo Nix. He chased him down.
Yes, right.
To the sideline. It was right at they gave him a sack. It was like right at the line of scrimmage, but it was a sack. Yes. When it was all said and done.
So really, I guess the question with Milano is just going to be what the question has been for a couple of years, because you still see the signs of a guy in there, a good player. Maybe not the top 5 linebacker in the league that he was a few years ago, but a guy that can make a real difference for you. Can that guy's body hang together, stay together for 17 games? Because if it can. Then you have a great player.
I think what you might see this year, maybe, I don't know, but maybe because of what Dorian was able to do last year, getting that second year under him, maybe it's a little bit of a load management situation with Matt this year, too. Like, you think about Joey Bosa, right? And, hey, like, we're not going to have this guy on the field all the time. And I'm not telling you Matt Milano's not going to play first and second down. Those are his money downs. What I'm telling you is, in a normal game situation, he's on the field. But maybe you get a 2-touchdown lead and you say, hey, Dorian, go play linebacker for a series. Something like that.
That's a good question, how much they would want to do that. Because, two, they might also want to get a look at beyond what they see in practice and in training camp, and that'll be meaningful also. Chris Brown talking about Williams is in my head because he really liked his season last year, a lot more than even I did. How much will the Bills want to see him? Not just even for the load management portion of this, but for long-term purposes. I mean, he is still very young. I mean, he was drafted in 2023. He's still 23 years old. And you see that there is a crazy good athlete in there for a linebacker. which would make you think that there's an upside still to be found there, but it's just the mental part of the game and overrunning things, and can he get all that down? Because if you get signs of that this year in spots, like that could go a long way for the linebacker conversation beyond this year. Because Milano, I don't know what the future will hold for him after this season. Like right now, Williams going into a 4th year of a rookie deal, 24 years old. I mean, that feels like your maybe most likely guy right now for that. And you're not going to want him to not play at all next year if Milano were to stay healthy. So I just think that all of that position, even though they didn't really do much or really anything at that position, the rotation might be really interesting for what they do.
It is funny. They did not do anything, you're right, other than bring in Keontae Jenkins as an undrafted free agent. Like, that's it. That's the only thing they did at the position, which is interesting because I think, Joe, maybe the bigger question is who winds up winning the backup middle linebacker job, which I think is between Joe Andreessen and Balen Spector. And I'm going to give the nod to Joe Andreessen because of his availability and the fact that he's going into the 2nd year of a very minimal rookie contract. Balen Spector's on the 4th year of a rookie contract. He hasn't been as available. He was on IR twice last year. This has nothing to do with Joe being the local guy or anything like that. I think he earned his spot. But I think Joe Andreessen, as I sit here now, I think he beats out Balen Spector. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if Spector gets the first crack at it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I would just the incumbent still in a way.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm with you. By the way, someone in the chat did point out Milano has 2 years left in his contract. If you go to his spot track page, one of them's a void. No. It's a void year though. So
it's a void. Oh yeah, sorry, Joe. Yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, it's a void year, so it's a 1-year deal.
What happened was they redid his contract a couple months ago, and he was supposed to be under contract for 25 and 26.
Right.
But they shaved off a year of his contract, and he took a reduction in salary, but to get incentives. And that year became a void year, as Joe just pointed out. So he's actually an unrestricted free agent after this season.
Right. And the Bills will, there is a consequence to that. They will take, according to Spotrac, it's $11 million next year that they'll have to eat, and then 4.8 the year after. So, it's not, you might actually, your best case scenario, this was a thing we talked about with Bosa. We got to break. We're getting Paul Hamilton. We'll shift gears coming back. But Joey Bosa, there's a thing about his where it's a void year next year and there's a cap hit, but if it goes well and you extend him, then you make that a lot more manageable. Mm-hmm. And you might be rooting for the same thing with Milano. I mentioned Williams a year from now at 24 years old could be a good option for you, but Milano at 31, if he's able to stay healthy, it's a huge if for him, I know. But that's what you'd be rooting for, because then that cap hit, doesn't look as bad because you actually have the guy in the field playing for you.
As JT points out, you can still extend a guy on a void year, no doubt.
Yeah.
It really kind of triggers when the void happens. If he's on the roster on this particular day, it's void, and you got to count that cap hit. But the Bills could in December say, hey, Matt Milano's had a great year. We want to extend him. And you can change everything about what that void year means, basically. So I think for our purposes here, Milano going into the last year of his contract, and then we'll see.